If I do this, I look like that. I look like the Crimson King stand. You know what I'm saying? The one that's on the forehead. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is JaeAIK and welcome back to another video on my second channel. I got a haircut recently, so I look like less of a Korean Justin Bieber and more like the kid from Up. You know what I'm saying? Today, I'm gonna be reviewing your favorite Fire Emblem characters. I asked this on Twitter such a long fucking time ago, like 2 weeks ago, but then I didn't expect so many people to reply, so it took a little while, but here we are, you know what I'm saying? Look at me trying to open my eyes because my eyes are so small. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Starting right off from Brave Saint Cypher at Cypher KC, aka Cypher Dad. And of course he's asking about Eldigan the Lionheart. Yeah, Eldigan's super sick. As a character, he's powerful, he wields the Dark Blade of Mistletoe, and his death sets up for who I think is one of the coolest kids in Generation 2, in FE4, Ares. And honestly, for like a chemist like character, he's like pretty reasonable. And his struggle between where he has to be loyal to his friend or his country adds kind of a layer of depth to the character that I think is really neat. I give Eldigan I place 2 Eldigans in the Bond Zone to activate Cross Knight's move out and end the game with Beowulf. Veko at V_E_K_O asks about Raphael. Raphael's the newest character, or one of the newer characters that's going to come out in Fire Emblem 3 Houses. He's going to be in the Golden Deer house, and the only reason why I'm going to personally play through the Golden Deer route. But yeah, as it stands right now, we don't know too much about Raphael, as there's not much information about him yet. But I already know he's great, so absolute unit out of 10. Chris at Horse Hogan asks about Legold, and also Big Boy Frenchie at Big Boy Frenchie he also asks about Legold. So yeah, 2 people asked about Legold this time around, and in my opinion, he's great. He plays, in my opinion, the thief role very well. Which is a nice contrast to the other thief that you get, Matthew, who's more like a spy than he is a thief, if that makes sense. But yeah, I liked using him in FE7 as my promoted assassin, even though most of the time I gave it to Matthew because I like, you know, that sweet revenge justice, you know what I'm saying? But whenever I wanted to be a little bit more efficient with my playthrough, then I usually gave it to Legold, who was, in my opinion, the better assassin. So yeah, I'll give Legold a Falcon Knee in his damaged art in Fire Emblem Heroes out of 10. God damn it, Bisquick, I can't fucking not see that now. My boy Colm at what I think is one of the best, like, Twitter handles. It's Killer Colm Star. He asks about Athena, which, you know, is understandable. He is the Athena soloist. So my boy Colm asks what I think about Athena. So I'll be the first to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Athena, but she is neat. I like her accent, and I like how they show that like Russian accent by using V's. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I give Athena a worth killing half by army to recruit her out of 10. The next one comes from Goose at Gooseophone. Also, if any of these guys are YouTubers, and I personally, or if I know they're YouTubers and whatnot, I'll leave all their channels in the description below. Please check them out. But Goose at Gooseophone asks about Nino. So, all right, I'll be honest. I'm gonna feel really bad for saying this. Okay, you see me getting all serious, because that's just me being serious. Okay, but I'll be honest. I'm not the biggest fan of Nino, and I kind of feel bad for saying that, especially since your segment in the Gas collab video was incredible. Okay, made me feel things inside my cold and dead heart. Okay, but Longtime fans of my channel will know that I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Nino. I think for me personally, the only reason why Nino exists, right, is for continuity reasons from FE7 to FE6. Nino has to exist in a faction where people are unhappy with how the organization is being run, right? Or it has to be in a faction where there's going to be enemies for Lu and Ray to be orphans. Okay? Because to me, if you want to learn about the Black Fangs, right, you can literally look at any other Black Fang character and really learn a lot about how the Black Fang structure is, especially if you look at Lloyd and Linus's stories in FE7. The second thing that Nino only does is she sets up the character arc for Jafar, which is pretty neat. But again, I don't think Jafar is really a big he's not a big picture character for the Black Fang at all. So two characters that I don't think really, if you want to learn about the Black Fang, you can literally look at anyone else. Jafar is literally only there, or I don't want to say he's literally only there, but Jafar doesn't really give you any real important insight into the Black Fangs, or at least that's in my opinion. So for that, I'll give Nino a overused meme of "I'll do my best" out of 10. Lenopal at Lenopal asks about Sanaki, Snacky, and I know why he gave me Sanaki, but I'm gonna give him a serious answer because I'm mad. So just in general, I don't really like Sanaki. But I don't really think she's an awful character. She's a brat that like pretends to have powers but actually doesn't. Hey, you know what? Fuck it, dude. I don't appreciate you kicking my ass with a little girl all the time and fucking Fire Emblem Cypher, alright? So, you know what? I give Sanaki a YouTube rewind out of 10. I get that. No one's gonna get that fucking reference except the people that play Cypher and you. So, shout out to you, Lenopal. Go check his art out. Gong Hong at Wintergarden147 asks about Tiki. Well, damn, I guess all the homies are coming through like in the very beginning. Tiki, depending on which version. So I'm assuming you like the Awakening version since you've never played Shadow Dragon and his sequel. But for me, Young Tiki's better than Adult Tiki, and Adult Tiki is pretty fucking boring as a character. So I give her a go the fuck to sleep out of 10. Zeno at Zeno20 asks about Perry. Who would have guessed? I've stated my opinion on Perry before. I don't really have a strong opinion on her. Or I guess I don't really mind her, but I do. But again, I do lean more on the side that she's a poorly written character. Because I just think her motives as a character are really poor. Her relationship with other characters are even more poor. And I think whatever good aspect she has is kind of like drowned out by how like overbearing and overjarring her poorer aspects are. So for that, I guess I'll give Perry I wish they took her in a slightly different approach to her as a character out of 10. Just go watch my video on the subject. Alright, Bisquick at Bisquick4 asks about the Reed brothers. I asked for a single character because I love you, Bisquick. I'll review both of them for you. Lloyd and Linus were my first ever quote villains. I've had the pleasure of meeting in my Fire Emblem game. I love the dynamic that the two share, and kind of how they act as the foils to Ellawood and Hector, right? So Lloyd kind of like mirrors Ellawood's cool, calm, collected kind of demeanor, and then Linus reflects Hector's aggressive nature. I mean, we've talked about this before, right? But yeah, and like I think that's like one of the biggest reasons why they're super memorable. On top of that, the map that you fight them in were also like really fucking cool. Either where it's the Fog of War map, right, the port map, or the Shrine of Seals when you do end up fighting them. It feels like every time you met them, it was going to be a big clash. And finally, spoilers ahead, when you meet them reborn as morphs, it kind of like hits you. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not how you wanted the final battle with Lloyd and Linus to go, but you have to fight them in order to get to Nurgle. So yeah, I give them a I wish at least one of these guys were recruitable out of 10. Dokes Folks asks, what do I think of Pent? So Dokes knows this, that Pent is by far one of my more favorite characters to ever grace the series. Pent is by far one of the best characters in terms of, you know, one, he has 1 to 2 range, he has staff utility, he can use the physics staff right off the bat. Yeah. But outside of the fact that he's a fantastic unit, it's his character. Like, the first time you meet him, it's in just some random ass desert and he's just kicking everyone's ass, and you're like, or when you first meet him, you're like, oh, I gotta go help that poor defenseless mage, and then turns out that poor defenseless mage is helping you. You know what I'm saying? He's so overpowered, like, right off the bat, that there's no real reason you shouldn't field him into your party, unless like your Urk was blessed by the penis of RNGesus, okay? But besides that, as a character, like, he's so influential that, like, I've said this time and time again in Gast's collab video thing, whatever that we did, but he's so influential that he's mentioned by name in the plot of FE6 without ever making an appearance. And then 3 characters that are kind of like, one, his adopted son, and then 2 of his kids are in that game. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. And then in FE7, him and his connections are the sole reason why Eliwood and gang can even, you know, get to Nurgle in the first place. So yeah, I give Pent the best FE7 character out of 10. The Link King at The Real Link King asks what I think about Arvis. So Arvis is a great villain, or, well, okay, hold on. His ambitions and motives is arguably one of the best by far in the series of Fire Emblem. So I guess it's a little unfair for me to call him a villain, because in the end, his intentions was kind of like, you know, I'm just looking out for what I think is in the best interest of peace, right? And he found that he had to do it a little bit ruthlessly in order to obtain that vision that he sees as peace, right? So yeah, if you, man, honestly speaking, just go watch Link's video on Arvis, labeled Arvis Did Nothing Wrong, video in the description below. But yeah, I'll go ahead and give my rating now. Fuck you, Link. Arvis is garbage out of dumpster fire. Momo at Peach Salt asks about Minerva. Minerva can be summarized into 3 words: big dick energy. Her influence as a character is so great that characters copy her design in future Fire Emblem games or mimic her act of rebellion. Like, hell, she's so influential that Cherche names her dragon Minerva, making Cherche that much more badass. So I give Minerva, she can step on me, and I probably can't complain, out of 10. Anti-Skillshot at a Skillshot asks about Hector. Hector is a bro. I just don't think there's much else to say. Like, he legitimately goes out of his way to really help the homie Eliwood out. He picks up the Axe R mods, you know, because he's like, hey, you know what? Fuck it, dude. It's worth it if I die on the battlefield, because you know what? I'm helping the boy Eliwood out. He's also brash and aggressive, but that later becomes kind of becomes like this big bear figure in Fire Emblem 6. So yeah, I give Hector a Lex would be proud out of 10. So FEH player at FEH player 1 asks about Jafar. Jafar is one of those characters that I like not for character reasons, but more for as a unit. Which is, I guess, a really odd thing to say, because his design is edgy, and seeing Silencer for the first time was super memorable for me, and for those reasons Jafar is great. But I don't know, I just don't think his character arc is, to me, seemed very one-dimensional, and people might find it heartwarming, and I can see that, right? But to me, it just didn't resonate with me. So yeah, I give him a born on a pile of corpses out of Edge. Eric at Eric1 asks about Tharja. So people are like, yeah, the stalker gimmick's just meant to be played out for jokes, but to me, it's just, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way. I just don't think it's funny. I think it's unnecessarily creepy, and I think she's also a god-awful mom. So yeah. Sorry about being negative to Tharja. I just don't find her gimmick to be adorable, cute, or funny. So I give Tharja a awful mom out of 10. Please leave normal. Murph, line Wrath at Rudder Murphy asks about Taitu. So Taitu is a great character that I think oftentimes kind of gets underlooked when people talk about FE4 characters, because, like, you know, and for good reason, because the Generation 1 characters are all really fucking good, right? But in Generation 1, we kind of see like this bright, cheery, like, mage, right? And that kind of personality is a beacon of hope, you know, for a lot of the characters. So it must have been really, like, rough for her, right, in the events that kind of predate Generation 2. Because, one, she lost all her friends to the fucking fire that Arvis made. Then she's getting abused by her sister, right? So, so that kind of leads into a tragic end for her. But she gives birth to Arthur, who has one of the best boss dialogues after Leaf, in Generation 2 of Fire Emblem 4. So for that, I give Taitu a Arthur out of 10. Some kind of owl person at Max Wooble asks about Morgan, both genders. So this is another one of those characters that I just don't have a real strong opinion about, besides the fact that she's incredibly overpowered in Awakening. If you build your Morgan correctly, she can single-handedly solo the game as long as you pass Gale Force counter down to each gender respectively. And even in speedruns, like, Morgan is such a good character that it becomes that, like, when you route your Awakening speedrun playthrough, that it becomes optional to pick up Morgan, if that makes sense. So yeah, my favorite build to do on Morgan was the Vantage Vengeance combo with 5 Forged Nosferatu or Nosferatu like tomes and Arms Thrift. So you just basically never die. So yeah, I'll give her and him a broke. They broke fucking Fire Emblem Awakening out of 10 for me. I'm like messing around with my DS pen. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have like oh shit, I like dropped it. But I don't know if you guys have like this habit of just fucking around with pens. Like, I used to do this shit all the time when I studied. You know what I'm saying? Just subconsciously too. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but anyways, the Trophy Gamer at the Trophy Gamer asks about Charlotte, and if I had to pick a dude if I had to pick Matt, also asks about Charlotte. So 2 people asked how I feel about Charlotte. At first, I didn't like her, and then as I played the game more, kind of just became, I don't really have a strong opinion on her because, well, she isn't interesting to me. Her gimmicks seem whacked. But over time, I started to really appreciate her as a character. Ironically, due to Fire Emblem Cypher. One of my mods, Veko, plays a Charlotte deck, and every time I faced off against it, I couldn't help but feel like, damn, this like really brings the best out of Charlotte's character traits and uses her gimmicks in Fire Emblem Awakening as a really interesting card mechanic. So because of that, I started to really appreciate her from there on. So I give her a best gold digger waifu out of 10. Tactician Magician William Shepard at Tactician Wills asks about Robin fuck, and not N. So longtime followers of my channel know that I'm not a big fan of Avatar characters, with the exception of Mark. So this means I'm not the biggest fan of Robin. I think he's incredibly bland, boring, and overhyped, like Roy, because of the fact that he's a Smash like Roy because of the fact that he's a Smash Brothers character. I will, however, say that he was one of the characters that I had at the very start of Fire Emblem Heroes, that ended up becoming my saving grace against the hordes of Takumis and Ryoma that plagued the battlegrounds in Arena. So for that, I give my I give Robin M a Triangle Adept 3 Raven Tome out of 10. It's like raining outside now, so if that ever picks up on the mic, I'm sorry. I'll do my best to kind of keep that to a minimum though. But anyways, moving on, we have Sam at Lake Jam asking about Ishtar. So the more I do these character review types of stuff, the more I realize I don't really have too much of a massive opinion on these characters. But I guess Ishtar, well, I guess Ishtar is kind of neat in the fact that people would classify her as the chemist archetype, but they went about doing her in a different way, where her loyalty wasn't to a country per se, but more towards her lover Julius. So for that, I give Ishtar a Thor's Hammer was a funnier name than Mjolnir out of 10. Mega Master at Megamass 804984443 asks about Finn. Alright, so this dude is legit one of the most manliest characters to grace Fire Emblem, and he's still young. Like, the fact that he took Leaf and Nana out of the Fallen Thracia, basically raised them as his own kids, and then helped Leaf not only take back his own kingdom, but then help Seliph get revenge for his fallen parents, makes Finn one of the most badass characters to come out of Yggdrasil. Not to mention, I always liked pairing him with Lachesis to get that special dialogue in Generation 2 of FE4, and it made my somewhat miserable experience of FE5 a little bit more heartwarming. So I give Finn a related to Quan, so he's automatically really cool without all the manly actions that he's done, out of 10. Oh shit, it's raining pretty hard now, what the fuck? I slowly feel my voice dying, so hopefully I can finish strong. Skittles at Skittles and Hentai asks about Seliph. So if I was to be honest, I'm kind of conflicted on how I feel about Seliph, because I really want to like him, but I just end up feeling like he's mediocre at best. So he's like okay at best. I feel like there's a lot of good things going for him, right? That you can infer a lot about, but that's kind of just it, right? You have to infer a lot of these character traits about Seliph, right? It also doesn't help that, like, I think in Generation 1 of Fire Emblem 4 is kind of like what I consider like really fucking good, right? So having Seliph be the face of Generation 2 alongside Julia made Generation 2 part a little bit boring for myself. However, while Generation 1 is good, a good revenge story isn't bad, so I guess Seliph to me is, I just don't really have a strong opinion of. So Karma at Karma Puppet asks about Gaius. So I played the Asugi deck in Fire Emblem Cypher. It opened up my appreciation for the original Asugi, Gaius, the Candy King. He's kind of funny. He doesn't, like, his main motivations as a thief isn't to steal money, but to steal sugary sweets, and you know, and whatever else makes him happy, right? I think in Awakening he has like a critical quote where he's like candy from a baby, and that like critical quote has kind of stuck with me because I just found it like super hilarious, right? So yeah, I give Gaius a pair him up with a mom that can't pass down the Dark Flyer class for Gale Force out of 10. Ninten IDK at Ninten_IDK asks about Severa. Yeah, I don't really have too many big fond memories of Severa specifically, so I'll keep this one short. I didn't like Severa, but I like Selena, so I'll give her a Still Sundre and Fates, but the toning down of it made her a much more likable character for me, out of 10. Alright, so we got 3 Owain fans here. Salem Rabah at Salem Rabah S, Dr. Autismo at Autismo_Doctor, and the True Hero at the _Innocent Yuke. They all asked for Owain. Lots of Owain fans, so I guess, you know, it makes sense, because he is pretty funny. He has a really good voice actor that really brings the character to life, and he's just a massive nerd, right? In high school, the reason why I like Owain is, one, he has a really good relationship with Inigo Laszlo, And in high school, I had like a joke with my friend how he was, because you know how they have the support conversation with Owain and Morgan, where it's Binding Blade and Flamingo Punch, whatever. So we had a joke about how he was Binding Blade and I was Flamingo Punch. So yeah, so there's just, because of those reasons, I have, really fond and funny memories about Owain. So I give Owain a JoJo pose out of 10. I almost forgot to do the rating. So Lackey at Lackey Macchiato asks about Luin. And One Dixie Cup just for you also asks, at One Dixie Cup asks also about Luin. So, it's fitting. So for me, it's fitting that Luin is a wind mage. Because if he was a real person today, he'd be a hippie that free roams the earth and talking about inner chakra and shit like that, right? Yeah, he's borderline busted thanks to his bloodline being able to wield the Forseti tomb, and he's canonically the father of Sed, who's also bonker in his own rights, making Luin, I think, memorable for a lot more people, right? So yeah, I give Luin a Gone with the Wind until Forseti bring me back out of 10. Ultimate Hope Shori asks, or at Shori Blaze, wants me to review Lin. There's been a recent surge of a bunch of Lin conversation thanks to, thanks to me seeing a bunch of analysis on the character. Both from Zerk and Gast's most recent support science at this current moment in time. But yeah, and even like with how well written and well thought out those analyses are, and I find myself agreeing with a lot of the points, right? I just still have no strong opinion on Lin as a character, despite her being my first ever lord I got introduced to. I guess just for me, I just have a stronger opinion about Eliwood and Hector than I do about Lin, who I felt was kind of shoehorned in ever since I was a kid. With that being said, best eyes in the game, still to this day, out of 10. Andrew Matters at Mandrew XGL asks about Dorcas. So Astork is just one of those characters that are such a meme at this point that I feel like people that like Dorcas will start by using him as a meme and then being genuinely blown away by how good of a husband he is. I personally found him to be alright as a unit, since he's kind of like a lesser min-max version of Garcia from FE8. So I give him a Trust Nobody, Build an Army out of Fire Emblem 7. Daniel Hotop at Icelandic Hitman asks about Mathilda. So I played Fire Emblem Echo Shadows of Valentia after Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn. So Mathilda, even though she's kind of the original, is Titania 2.0 for me. She's basically a goddamn war goddess, and it's a very reliable one at that. So like I can stick her in a corner basically, right? And I know for a fact that she can make it out alive no problem. So I usually stuck her in a group with Clive and Cliff, who I turned into a Gold Knight in my first playthrough of Fire Emblem Echoes, and it just worked wonders for me. So I give Mathilda a, even though I use Clive and Mathilda who joined later still had better stats out of 10. Urk Iori Ace Defective asks about Urk. So there's a reason why Urk is Pent's student, because he'll never be as interesting or as good as Pent. He also chose Cecilia to be the next Mage General, and that shows that he has shit eyes for talent as well. But jokes aside, Urk, when I was a Fire Emblem noob, was one of those characters that I liked training up and using alongside Pent. And he's still one of those characters that I end up going back to whenever I pick up and play Fire Emblem 7. Just whenever I want to play through it casually, you know what I'm saying? So I give Urk a he owes Pent his life out of 10. Annie at N_I_meme asks about Cliff, and Pringleman _Pringleman asks also about Cliff. So like I stated earlier, Cliff in my first ever run of Fire Emblem Echo Shadows of Valentia was a character that was super reliable for me, and at times overpowered for me at later stages of the game. So in the very beginning, I will admit that he was kind of rough to train up, especially since I wasn't grinding levels in the caves. But once he got the Paladin and Gold Knife, Cliff performance skyrocketed and was just an overall reliable member that put in work against the hordes of enemies that came my way in the endgame. So I give Cliff a Gold Knight. Cliff was pretty cool out of 10. Celica Mera, Toyota model 2009, asks about Celica. So what a funny ass username. I like it. But yeah, I think Celica gets a lot of shit for good reason, but I blame the character, but I blame the character flaw where she follows Cheetah, right? More on character design than anything else. Cause her arc is kind of coming to a realization that the power of humanity doesn't really need to depend on a god, right? And Jeddah, who is the high priest of Duma, is like, hey, I can bring back Milla, right? It makes sense for Celica to follow Jeddah, right? But the fact that he looks fucking evil, right? He has purple skin, right? He's doing the pose where it's like, I gotta do it to them. You know what I'm saying? If a guy dressed as Barney told you to get into an undiscreet white van, you probably wouldn't get in, but Celica did. But if that undiscreet white van was a sports car, and then the big, a nice looking gentleman priest was like, hey, I can go revive Duma, and then extort Celica out of money, then that's like a different story. You know what I'm saying? So I give, she's a great character, but Jesus Christ, that moment was dumb out of 10. Ivan at Mystic Hero 5 asks about the Black Knight. So Black Knight is an interesting case because you can't really talk about him without talking about Selgius, who I think are both neat besides the dumb warp powder shenanigans. The BK playing the foil to Ike I think was perfect, and it's just two buff manly dudes duking it out for if you're Ike, revenge, and if you're Zelgius, if he surpasses Master. I give BK a Son of Gawain out of 10. Abe Perez Bahamondes asks about Eloyd. While this may come as a surprise, since I genuinely praise Hector a lot, but the more I think about it, I think Eloyd is my favorite FE7 Lord. He's modest, has moments of breakdown, and he uses those moments of sorrow as fuel to become a better leader. Hector kind of goes through the same thing, but in a way that humbles his rash attitude. So, I don't know, I guess between the two, it's hard to say, but I think at this current moment, Eloyd is a notch above Hector out of 10, at least for me. Mord Sneak asks about Mordecai. No real opinion on Mordecai, but I like that gentle giant, big ass huggable bear, kind of character. I like those characters. That's why I like Benny, right? But I never really used him in my playthrough of Talius, so I guess when I do go back, I should give Mordecai a real chance. So I give him looks vicious as a beast, but it's actually just a homie out of 10. Mashed up Gen 6 player at Reshi_SSB asks about Leon. So I got into heated arguments as to why I think Leon is one of the best villains in Fire Emblem. I think Zerk's video does a great job summarizing why Leon is great, and you can also go watch my video on the subject as well. But yeah, Leon is just one of those characters that you can't judge in one playthrough, and you kind of have to dig a little bit into the story to find out who he really is as a person and what his motives are. So for that, Leon's pretty great. Vote Franz for CYL4 at Ender Warlock asks about Franz. Jesus Christ, that name. So Franz is cool, not in the fact that I remember his character, but because he's busted as a unit. In fact, he's so busted that he got nerfed in the English release. So yeah, there we go. His growths aren't bad, and his basis for the early game cav isn't bad either. It's really hard to mess up on Franz if you play through FE8, so I give Franz a mini Seth out of 10. H-Foes at H-Fosizzle asks about Inigo. I touched upon this briefly earlier when talking about Owain, but Inigo is up there with one of my favorite kids. So every kid's gimmick in Awakening was a way for them to cope with a dark future. And for Inigo, it was him trying to show off to the girls and failing miserably. But what makes him great, like I said earlier, the two games that really show his growth, not only as a person, it's like I said earlier, what makes him great is the two games that really show his growth, not only as a person, but as a genuine brother to Owain. So I give Inigo I'm a man of passion out of 10. God, dude, that was so hard to talk through. What the fuck? So Guatan CL at Guatan. I'm hella butchering this. I'm so sorry. Underscore CL asks about Gray. For Gray, I found it really easy to be Unga Bunga, and I reflected that in how I chose Gray. Gray use sword, Gray dread fighter, Gray kill everything, Gray smash. I don't know why I don't know why I turned him into the Hulk all of a sudden, but I give Gray a shut up Tobin out of 10. Reek at Great Reek asks about Lex. So I'll be 100% honest, my lips aren't worthy enough to say God's name. There's a joke on my Discord about Lex and how good he is as a character, and because of that, he's God. Paragon, Golden Axe, and that beautiful hair all make him top tier characters right off the bat. And what the hell? His reasoning for joining the war was basically to get his boy Azael some pussy. You know what I'm saying? So if that isn't a total bro move, I don't know what is. So I give Lex God out of God. Tegan Falsitelli at T Falsitelli asks about Micaiah. Micaiah is alright, and I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of her. To me, Micaiah was just a big plot device, and she never turned out well for me as a unit either, making my memories with her pretty bad. So I'm glad Heroes at least gives her kind of a cool kind of use. I give Micaiah a sacrifice out of 10. Otavio Diaz Lira at Dio Otavio asks about Noah. The Winter Knights in FE6 are honestly really underlooked as units and characters, and I'll be kind of talking more in a broad sense here for a second. So like all of the Winter Knights, Zealot, Trek, and Noah, these characters, excuse me, kind of talk about Ilya and how they function as a society kind of as a whole, and that's like, you don't really see that too much with other Ilian Knights, right? Noah specifically as a character is chill, but not in the spaced out way like Trek. He knows how to take it easy because he doesn't know when it's going to be his last. I hope that made sense. I don't know. I made a video on this exact topic, so you should just go watch that video out of 10. FE Lord at War Turtle 8MC asks about Cordelia. So I for one know that Cordelia is a massive fan favorite, but I just couldn't get into her character. It's not that I find it bad, I just find it boring. A perfect character is just that, perfect. And to me, there was nothing worth digging into because she mentioned, like, it would have been super interesting if they played around that, you know, survivor's guilt aspect, but they kind of bring it up once and then they never bring it up again. So maybe I'm just looking into Cordelia wrong, but I couldn't like her, like, no matter how hard I tried. She is fun to use in Heroes though, so I give her a how to make him fall in love in a fortnight but still couldn't get in it with Crom out of 10. Blay at Solad asks about Corrin. I'm sorry that this is your favorite character because I genuinely think Corrin is one of the worst characters to grace the series. There are too many flaws with this character that makes me dislike him, and the fact that he's an avatar with avatar worshipping characters makes him an even worse character and leaves an even worse taste in my mouth. However, he or she does have really good design and is fun to play in Smash, even if Corrin can't kill until they get up to 200%. So this one goes out to my folks with a foot fetish out of 10. Garmin Rev Knight at Knight Garmin asks about Benny. Absolute unit. I don't think there's anything more else to be said here, so absolute unit out of 10. Andrew at Acer Uwu asks about Valoria. So fun fact, before I started making videos seriously and before Fates came out, I used Valoria as my icon everywhere because I found her design to be amazing. And then I learned about her character and immediately switched back to Cherche. So in an alternate universe, JaeAIK's mascot is Veloria. But I find her character to be just kind of weird, kind of creepy. So yeah, I give her a fluff ball made out of dust bunnies out of 10. Bartov N. Greaves at Verbose Vagrant asks about Raven. Raven is monster. So like in FE7, if you go into the game blind, you're actually kind of unsure how you get with him until you mess around a little, and then Priscilla's like, "Hey yo, bro, join the squad," and Raven be like, "Yeah." And then you get down and dirty with Hector hard mode, and you use Raven, and you realize that they buffed him. So wherever he goes, he just creates this trail of blood wherever he goes, and then you promote him to a hero, and you see this mass genocide of red soldiers. He's edgy. Yeah, but young Jay liked edge, you know what I'm saying? So I always held Raven up to high regards. I even have a I even have a Raven cipher card, which is right here. The light's getting in the way, but I have a Raven cipher card to show off how much I like Raven. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta put it back. So yeah, for that, I give Raven a hard carried Hector mode out of 10. Yuki at Yuki38556423 asks about loot. Loot is interesting, but I don't really have a strong positive opinion on her as a unit, as I'm not a fan of growth units. That doesn't make her bad though. She's great early game that likes to chip down enemies for you for your other units to finish off. And by the time you get to either Sage or Mage Knight, she gets the added staff utility that makes her better. And you can either get light magic or horse utility with her, making her never really that bad. However, I generally tend to give my first ring to healer, so loot until I get my second ring becomes dead weight for me for some time unless I get the early guiding ring in chapter 5. So for those reasons, I give loot I still think her personality is adorable out of 10. Doomdes at Doomdes asks about Yuzu. I still don't know shit about Cypher OCs, and I didn't buy the Echoes DLC either. I do have a video planned talking about them, but I do want to wait a little bit and get more research done and get the DLCs before I commit to making that video. Sorry I can't give you a proper rating out of 10. King Toxic at KingToxic20XX asks about Katarina. I guess I'm okay with her. She's pretty cool. I'll admit I didn't really use her in my time in Fire Emblem 12, even if she's good, and she left a somewhat decent impression on me. But the real first good impression that Katarina left on me was from my time in Fire Emblem Cypher, where I think her ability to just break orbs is just so thematically good, and on top of that, her ability to buff the main MC or swap MCs for you, right, is also super fitting to her character. I just think they handled her in Cypher, made me really appreciate her as a character more than I did when playing through FE12. I give her a worst assassin since she's a mage out of 10. Katria Thick at Katria Thick asks about Katria. I like so I'll be honest, I like Paula more, but Katria is a close second. So as long as we can agree that Est is the worst, I'm willing to bump Katarina up to S tier alongside Paula, because fuck Est out of 10. 2V Months at 2V Games asks about Atlas. In my first ever run of Fire Emblem Echoes, I didn't really use him, so in my second run, I turned him into a mage because I thought it'd be funny, and it was funny. So instead of throwing fireball spells, I'm pretty sure he just threw tree trunks at the enemies, and everyone was willing to turn a blind eye to it whenever he called it a spell. Atlas is such a man, and the next time I play Echoes, I can't wait to make him make the Dreadfighter squad with Atlas in it, because man, dude, it's such a buff ass dude, right? So I guess I'll give Atlas he looks like Ranzel from Dragalia Lost out of 10. Or does Ranzel look like Atlas from Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia? And last but not least, NCR Ranger Legion at W Capon asks about Legion. There are many of us. Wee. Yeah, because of how ridiculous Legion is, he's kind of become a meme. But if I saw something like the Legion army in real life, it'd be fucking terrifying. Like the hive mind thing is like super fucking creepy if you like really think about it. And it's something that I really thought about, you know what I'm saying? So whenever I think of Legion, I'm like, wow, Legion's kind of actually really fucking creepy, right? So I give a Legion a Ulces of Us out of 10. Oh my god. So I don't know how many characters there were, but like I'm looking through all my recordings right now, and there's a lot of videos with my face on it, and I feel really uncomfortable looking at my own face. So, with that being said, if you really enjoyed this video and you want to participate in the next time, be sure to follow me on Twitter. Yeah, that's about it. See you guys next time. Pieces. Where's my stop record button? Oh, right there. Alright, pieces.